Right? What is digital money? What is digital capital? What is Bitcoin? How can it be helpful to the world? Focus upon that, stay abreast of that, communicate that in a constructive fashion.
Yeah.
Right. So my life has changed in that regard. I have a mission.
Yeah.
Cryptocurrencies have evolved from digital novelties to trillion-dollar technologies in under a decade, possessing the capacity to disrupt the global financial system. An rising number of investors are holding Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as assets, utilizing them to purchase a range of items and services, including software and digital real estate. Advocates assert that cryptocurrencies serve as a democratizing mechanism that undermines central banks' power to generate and regulate currency, a position endorsed by Wall Street. Michael Saylor, CEO of MicroStrategy, asserts that governments, corporations, and institutional investors would recognize Bitcoin as a kind of digital capital. He emphasized MicroStrategy's commitment to acquiring and endorsing Bitcoin, while also noting its exceptional technological simplicity and efficiency. As global digital connectivity increases, SAR predicts that countries and corporations will adopt Bitcoin as a reserve asset, with institutional investors and sovereign wealth funds leading the way prior to central banks. He perceives Bitcoin as embodying digital riches analogous to how the dollar signifies actual currency.
I spent a lot more time studying Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. You never get bored?
I spent a lot more time studying history.
Okay.
I spent a lot more time studying economic history. I've been introduced to Murray Rothbard. Spent a lot of time studying, studying the economic history of the American colonies before the Revolution is something I never would have thought I would have been interested in. So my interest in economics and history and politics, I spent a lot of time parsing bills, parsing litigation, listening to congressional testimony. So I'm a lot more interested in arcane financial regulation and politics than I was before. All of those things have changed, and I have a lot more communication activity, right? I didn't used to go on financial television on Bloomberg or CNBC or Fox. I do a lot more of that. I do a lot more. I didn't do podcasts. Now I do.
Yeah, true.
I didn't tweet. Now I do.
Yeah.
Right. So I think I do a lot more communication, a lot more research, a lot more synthesis in this area.
Yes. Yes.
And you could say the 10 years previous, I kind of did that and shared my thoughts with my friends.
And now with the world.
We sit around a table and there's 8 people, and someone says, "What do you think about the world?" And you talk, and the 8 people nod, and then you go home that night, and nothing much changes. Now I spend a lot more time talking about not the entire world, because I think Bitcoin teaches you to have the humility and know that you're not going to solve the 100 problems or the 1,000 problems of the world. I think I've realized I should focus on one thing. Right? What is digital money? What is digital capital? What is Bitcoin? How can it be helpful to the world? Focus upon that, stay abreast of that, communicate that in a constructive fashion.
Yeah.
Right? So my life has changed in that regard. I have a mission.
Yeah.
No, I think it's enjoyable.
It's a present?
I think things are a burden if you feel like you've got a mission but you're not making any progress and you're failing.
Mm-hmm. But you're winning.
Like when you're failing in your mission, right? There are examples of people throughout history that had a mission and devoted their life to something, and they just had a series of continuous setbacks. And I don't know. I don't want to speak for them, but if I was them, maybe I might deem that to be a bit of a burden.
Yeah.
But if you've discovered a mission and you're pursuing it and you're making progress and you feel like you're winning, then I think it's invigorating.
Not at all. Okay, because you understood
It's been
Bitcoin.
A good 4 years.
Yeah, no, yeah. I followed you.
The lowest point was probably when Bitcoin, at the crypto winter hit 16,000. And I wasn't lacking in optimism. I felt just fine. It was just
what about the bank?
Around me
exactly.
When they were failing, or when their confidence was failing, then it required more heavy lifting, right, or more communication. Then it's pretty easy when everybody's succeeding, right? In the bull market, in the bear market, you have to work a little bit harder. But
okay,
I don't think there was never, like, we were buying Bitcoin aggressively when it was 16,000.
Yeah.
Michael Saylor says that intelligence and digital money will bring about a lot of change over the next 10 years. He believes that the switch to digital money will completely change the way businesses and banks work. He also said that digital intelligence is growing quickly and will have an impact on many different fields. He said that Bitcoin is a better investment than other types of goods and that its value could grow by 50% every year. CEO Michael Saylor said that the company will continue to buy Bitcoin, promote its use, and tell others about it. He said that the success of the cryptocurrency was due to its simplicity and efficiency in comparison to the complexity and inefficiency of traditional banking institutions. Because big changes were coming to industries and society as a whole, Saylor urged other companies to follow the Bitcoin standard and raise money using Bitcoin. To learn more about Michael Saylor, let's watch the conversation again and look at some other clips.
There was never a point when I wasn't sure.
But there was no call from the bank, like a margin call, or some manager said, oh my God, what are we doing? We're losing it.
The closest thing to that was when Silvergate Bank failed.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, we had a $200 million loan, a Bitcoin-backed loan with Silvergate Bank, and then the bank failed.
Okay, shit.
You know? But so that was something to be managed, and it turned out to work out well for us, because when the bank fails, you actually get to buy the loan back at a discount. So we actually benefited.
You made money out of it.
Like you know, right? If you borrow money from the bank, and you've got the money, and they need you to repay the loan, then you've got the advantage. So that was probably the closest thing to, you know, the low point.
Yeah.
Right. The prerequisite for discovering Bitcoin is to determine there is no hope. Like that's what we had to get to before the company would switch to a Bitcoin standard. That's what holds back other companies from switching. Because you kind of have to get to the point where you say, my family is hopeless, my company is hopeless, my country is hopeless, my strategy is hopeless, before you then open your mind, humble yourself, and say, should I adopt a new idea? So I would say in 2020, by the second quarter of 2020, we had determined that it was hopeless at that point. The other strategy was not going to work. Yeah, I would say the principle of paradigm shift is people only adopt a new paradigm in war or in death.
Yeah.
So you either have to, you know, all the old guard has to die, right? Teenagers and 20-somethings, they're at the beginning of their life, right? What do you want? You want fame, you want fortune, you want respect, you want a family, you want a girlfriend, right? Yeah. You have none of those things. You have no assets.
True.
Therefore, you have nothing to lose, everything to gain. And someone presents you with the idea of YouTube or a mobile phone or Bitcoin or electric guitar, right? Whatever it is, and you embrace it, right? The new paradigm. When you're 75 years old, you've already had the family.
The respect.
You've already got the respect. You've already got the money. You don't need to prove anything. Maybe you've already messed up your life. Maybe you haven't. But the point really is you have the most to lose, the least amount of time, the lowest amount of neuroplasticity, the least to gain. You're the most resistant to new ideas.
Yeah.
So youth will adopt a new idea. Yeah. Seniors will reject a new idea. The exception of that is in a war, when you reject air power and then the enemy drops bombs on your city and blows up your headquarters, and you look up, then you realize that your thesis was incorrect. You know, if you have cavalry and they have tanks, you know, then you realize the thesis was incorrect, right? So in wartime, when you have massive trauma, like, people all think they're going to fight the next war with the weapons from the last war, and when the next war comes along and there's 87,000 robot drone swarming wasp things to come through your window, you'll realize that all the stuff you had from 1990 that you were going to fight with is useless.
Yeah.
Right? So that'll be a paradigm shift. And I think that COVID was like the paradigm shift. But it doesn't catalyze everybody, because a lot of people didn't lose everything in COVID. Only some people lost everything in COVID. Some people gained.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's a catalyst. Chaos will continue to be a catalyst. But there's a tipping point, right, with these things. There's a point when something flips from being out of consensus, right, strange, terrifying, to being absolutely normal, to then being essential. And I think if you look in the history of technology, look at the photos of New York City in 1905 versus 1915. And somehow people went from horses on the streets and carriage to automobiles.
Yeah.
And there was a state change, and everybody was against it before they were for it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things like that in the history of technology, whether it's electricity or whether it's automobiles or whether it's mobile phones.
Bitcoin has gone up 10% since ending last week above $64,000, though it is still steady. Jerome Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve, said that interest rates would go down in September, which is what caused this jump. Almost $500 million is in U.S. spot Bitcoin ETFs, which shows that buyers are optimistic. The fact that more money is coming into Bitcoin shows that buyers are becoming more confident in the cryptocurrency's future. The recent drop in interest rates was caused by investors' trust, which led to investments in Bitcoin ETFs. The Miners Position Index, which is found by dividing the amount of money miners have left the market in USD by the 365-day moving average, has gone down from 0.63 to 1.46. This means that miners are less involved in the market, which lowers the pressure to sell and supports a higher price. It's also possible that miners are not selling their Bitcoin but are keeping it. Also, financing rates, which are a key indicator of how people feel about the futures market, prefer perpetual swaps. The current funding rate of 0.008 shows that buyers dominate the market and people are optimistic about the price of Bitcoin. This means that traders with long positions drive the market, which backs up the positive view of the price.